Say, everybody repeat after me. In our sight, in their sight, and in God's sight. The Israelites, they came back and said, we look like grasshoppers in our own sight. No one told them they look like grasshoppers. In our own sight, they looked in the mirror and they saw themselves small. How many of us look at ourselves and we see ourselves unworthy? Small, not good enough, not talented enough, not anointed enough. How many of us are stopping the promise of God because of how we see our own selves? It's important how we see ourselves. And let me tell you guys today, Psalms 34, verse 5. Those who looked at him were radiant, and their faces were never put to shame. If you look at the mirror and you see yourself small, if you look at yourself and see yourself unworthy, it's because you're not looking at him enough. It's because you're not gazing at his beauty long enough. Amen. If you see yourselves unworthy, if you see yourselves not good enough for the promise of God, it's because you're not staring at him long enough. Because if you stare at him long enough, it says your faces will not be put to shame. It means when you look at yourself again, you will see glory and radiance. You will see what? You will see a son and daughter of God. Amen. Those who look to him are radiant and their faces were never put to shame. David knew the secret. In Psalms 27, David said, one thing I ask of the Lord and that will I seek, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord. And do you know why David was able to beat Goliath? Everyone else in Israel saw Goliath as a 9-foot giant with a big sword. A strong giant warrior who's able to take out Israel. That's how everyone else saw Goliath in their sight. They saw Goliath as someone big and strong and unable to overcome. We see our problems and we think we're not able to overcome them. We see the promise and we think we're not good enough for it. But because David stared at the face of God, because David had experienced gazing upon the beauty of the Lord, because his face was radiant, when he looked at Goliath, he saw a small dog. Amen. Because David stared at the face of God, because his face was radiant, he knew who he was in his own sight. He wasn't a grasshopper. Though he was the smallest of his brothers, he was a mighty warrior already in his own eyes.